Ravens, 49ers, Cowboys, Bills, Browns, Lions still sitting at number 6 behind the top 5. We'll see what some people have to say about that. Packers moving up 4 spots, landed number 10, jumping the Eagles and the Texans. But do the Eagles still deserve to be ahead of the Texans?
We're going to focus on the top 5 to start this thing. And I mean, I understand Ravens 1, 49ers 2. I don't. How are the Browns in your top 5? I don't get that.
What? You don't think they should be in the top 5?
You think they're a top 5 team?
Yes, they should.
Would you put the Lions
They're like
there?
the hottest team in the NFL right now.
I'd put the Chiefs. I mean, Joe Flacco's the coach. You really think they're going to make a run in the postseason?
Yes. I do. I think they're one of the most dangerous teams in the playoffs.
The odds do not reflect that.
Well,
the odds have them
revisit their odds. The 9th favorite?
9th shortest odds.
You know what the odds makers are looking at? That the 4th-string quarterback came off the bench. What they're not looking at is the fact that he's had great success in the postseason as a starting quarterback.
Okay. I mean, what was that, 10 years ago?
And they can play defense. I mean, they get after the quarterback. They have guys that can attack the quarterback. If you have a passer who can hit the big ball down the field, and you have guys who can attack the quarterback, you will have playoff success.
And the biggest thing is, right, it's not even Joe Flacco for me. It's what you said, Pete. Their defense, right? They have an elite defense. When you talk about Myles Garrett, who will be up for Defensive Player of the Year, Jim Schwartz has brought a different attitude to this team. So, when you look at it, they go to a Houston Texans team who's very young. And, Pete, we always talk about this. Like, it's hard for young teams in the playoffs because they haven't been there before, right? They have to learn how to win in playoff situations. Joe Flacco, a lot of experience over there. Myles Garrett has been to the playoffs, right? Ward, the corner, has been to the playoffs. So they have experience on that side of the ball. And Joe Flacco has, I know what you're saying, he did that 10 years ago, but all he did was roll off the couch and throw for 300 yards every single game. So just to put this into perspective, they played the Jets 2 weeks ago. The Jets had a streak of 32 straight games, not giving up 300 yards to a passer. Joe Flacco almost did it in the first half versus them. So we know this. He's a real...
You know that.
I don't know, because they won the next week, so I can't say they quit. I think Joe Flacco just played a really good game. He had some really tight window throws to David Njoku in that game. I felt like they should have taken Njoku away. But we know this. Joe Flacco is a streaky quarterback, and right now he's the hardest quarterback in the NFL. So I think this is a team that can go on the road. And with their style of football, Pete, it doesn't matter that they're starting on the road. They can win in any conditions.
Yep. So, Leger, let me ask you this. Looking at Pete's top 5, they're 49ers, Cowboys, Bills, Browns, Ravens at the very top. Is that your Super Bowl odds that you would go with?
Ravens, 49ers for sure.
So you'd put the Ravens ahead of the 49ers?
They beat them head-to-head. You have to.
Have the 49ers as the favorites to win the Super Bowl.
Because the NFC is easier to navigate.
Well, you have to take that into account, right?
But that doesn't mean they're the better team.
I would also
These are his power rankings, Christopher.
I would also say the Ravens haven't had much success in the playoffs with Lamar Jackson. That's probably another reason why the 49ers are rated higher than them. But the way that this Ravens team has played this year, going to Levi Stadium and straight punking the 49ers, I like the odds of the Ravens and the 49ers meeting up in the Super Bowl. And honestly, I might have the Browns ahead of the Bills. You don't? You think the Ravens are going to lose, huh?
I think the playoffs are going to be wild. I think this season has been wild from week to week. We have no idea. From month to month, it changes. This team's going, oh, look, Jacksonville's the #1 seed. They stink.
That was mainly you, though, wasn't it?
Well, they were the #1 seed for about 5 hours. But then you look at it, and teams really surge, and they fall off. I think it's going to be a wild west of the playoffs.
So let's follow up on that, because you have been saying that for a couple weeks now. We could see one of these wild card teams make a wild run, potentially the Rams coming in your power rankings.
Brinson has them winning the Super Bowl.
He does.
Really?
Yes.
At number 9, though, you have them, and this is a team that was 31st to begin the season in your power rankings. So things that got a little squirrely here. But I mean, the Super Bowl hangover they had was unreal. How have they been able to get to this point?
Well, I don't know if it was necessarily a Super Bowl hangover, because they knew they were going to blow it up and rebuild the whole thing.
You called it a Super Bowl hangover.
Well, I mean, that's exactly what they did. They had to rebuild the whole thing. I should really criticize myself here.
Okay.
Because Sean McVay is a great coach. But more than that, and I've known Les Snead a long time, he's a really good personnel guy.
Right.
And if you look what they did to the roster, it takes a great personnel guy and a great coach to develop them. If you find the guys, the coach has to develop them. That staff has done a great job. Kobe Turner should be the Rookie of the Year.
He should. I've been saying this.
He's going to get my vote.
Yeah.
And the guy next to him, Young, has played amazing football as well.
Correct.
2 rookies. Puka Nacua is a 5th round. He'll probably be he could be the offensive rookie of the year. You could have both of them.
Yeah.
That's on Les Snead drafting, and then the developing is on Sean McVay. They're dangerous because you still have Matt Stafford, you still have Aaron Donald, and you have 2 stars on both sides of the ball. they're a team to watch in the postseason.
And don't forget, they got Cooper Kupp, who's going to be healthy because he's been able to rest the last few weeks. And you talked about it, right? The development of this young roster. That's been the key focal point for this Rams team. Sean McVay should be in the running for head coach of the year because, like you, Pete, I thought they were going to finish 31 or 32nd in the league. When you look at that roster, even today, I guarantee most people can't name 5 people on their defense. Now, I can because I'm a nut job and I watch a ton of film. But what they've done with Byron Young, 8 sacks, Kobe Turner, 9 sacks, guys that were third-round draft picks that nobody talked about going into the season. Raheem Morris, we were just talking about this, Pete. He should be in the running for some head coaching jobs because he's done a masterful job of developing a lot of these young players and getting them to play high-level football. And then you talked about it. Matt Stafford is back to playing Pro Bowl football. Puka Nacua could win Offensive Rookie of the Year, set the single-season record for catches by a rookie and receiving yards by a rookie. And then I talked about it. Cooper Kupp is coming back, and he is healthy now. So this could be a very dangerous team. And we talked about storylines all the time, right? Matt Stafford going back to Detroit. I know everybody will be tuned in for that game.
One quick thing. The offensive line, which was remade, entirely remade. They have a rookie at left guard, Avila. They have Alaric Jackson, who was a guard playing left tackle. They've been outstanding.
They've been amazing.
They really have. So if you're good on the offensive line, you have Matt Stafford, those weapons, you're going to be dangerous.
Who would have thought Rams would finish in your top 10 after the regular season? The Eagles wouldn't even be in the top 10.
I still think they're too high on your power rankings.
They're ahead of some playoff teams. I mean, you see the Texans, Steelers, Bucks, they're ahead of those teams.
Hey, Has, before we go further, let's just tell everybody that Amanda's been a jinx for the Eagles. Ever since she went to a game, I believe they're 1-5 since she went to a game.
Believe me, they had way bigger issues than you going to their game. Are they better? Look, they're better than the Steelers. As bad as they've been, they're better than the Steelers. And the Texans, who knows? I mean, they squeaked into the postseason, so that's why they're ahead of those teams. But when I look at this team, I have major concerns about them. I really do. They haven't played good football at all and probably should have lost to the Bills in that little run, and the Giants could have beat them the first time they played them. So this could be a real losing streak heading to the postseason. I'm worried about the Eagles. I think they don't rush the passer as well as we expect them to. They don't run the ball as well as they did a year ago. They used to be physical on that side of the ball. They're not anymore, and their secondary has major issues, even though Maddox is back in the lineup. I'm worried about the Eagles. I wouldn't be astounded if they go one and done, and then there's a lot of heat on Nick Sirianni.
For sure, and it's funny, right? We talked about Desai, Sean Desai being a defensive coordinator. Thank God they took away his privileges and gave him to Matt Patricia because they've only been worse since Matt Patricia has been the defensive coordinator. You talked about the trenches. What really irks me about this team is on the defensive line, right? Some of your best pass rusher, Matt Patricia is dropping them in coverage, right? They do a good job of getting after the passer. We saw so many coverage busts from these edge guys and Hassan Reddick and Josh Sweat because they're dropping in coverage and they're being in positions that they're not used to being in. These guys go forward. They go get the quarterback, and Matt Patricia is taking his strength, and he's made it a weakness on his team. You talked about it on the defensive side, too, with the secondary. They've struggled at times, especially in that slot position, and Reed Blankenship has really struggled in coverage, and then tackling has been abysmal from this team. The linebackers can't cover anybody in open space. On the offensive side of the ball, this offensive line was touted as one of the best, if not the best, offensive lines of football. They have not been able to protect Jalen Hurts at all this year. They've struggled against blitzes, and we saw the Giants and Wink Martindale blitz the house on them, and they had no answer for it. And the worst thing that could happen to them happened this past week. Guys got banged up on offense. When you talk about, you know, Brown and Smith being already hurt, and then Jalen Hurts being kind of banged up in that game. So I'm with you, P. I would not be surprised if they go into Tampa and lose this game this week.
It's funny, like about 8 weeks ago when they made the deal to go get Kevin Byard, everybody was getting a statue ready for Howie Roseman on a manual on how to be a great GM. That's kind of changed quickly.
You mentioned Brown and Smith. They're going to release their first injury report on Thursday. We'll see how they are. Let me ask you this when it comes to the Eagles. What happened? Because I'm looking at the schedule. They beat the Bucks, they beat the Rams, they beat the Dolphins, they beat the Chiefs, they beat the Cowboys. They were 10-1 going into Week 13, and then everything fell apart.
Well, to me, they were winning ugly games.
They were squeaking out.
They were squeaking by. So
yes, that is
the thing is, when you play on the edge like that, eventually you're going to fall off the edge, and that's exactly what's happening to the Eagles right now. Your talent alone was able to squeak you through some games, but when you get to late November and December and teams are starting to hit their stride, Pete, you got to execute at a high level or you will lose games, and that's what's happening to the Eagles right now.
And the quarterback hasn't played very well. I mean, he hasn't played to the expectations of a year ago, and he was banged up a little bit, and that showed up in the way they called called their run game. I just think it's a combination of everything, and it's really going to play out in the postseason because I don't think they can make a run.
Texans still sitting behind the Eagles there. And you said, look, this is still, we don't know exactly what to expect from the Texans because you have a rookie quarterback, you have a new head coach, I mean, that have made history getting to this point right now, though. Is this just we call it a win already for the Texans when it comes to this season?
Well, they wouldn't call it a win already, but we will.
Given what the basketball years have been.
We will. And by the way, it's a win for the next decade because they have their quarterback. That kid is special. He plays it with ease, and there aren't a lot of guys who step into this league and play that position with ease. I didn't see that coming out of Ohio State. I never in my wildest dreams thought that kid would step in and be at the level he is right now. I've told you this before. There's certain quarterbacks, they walk into this league and they make it look easy. The one guy that really did it was Dan Marino. This guy makes it look easy like that. I'm not saying he's going to be Dan Marino, but he makes it look easy. They have this team moving forward is going to be a problem for the entire AFC.
Pete, you talk about cool, calm, and collective in the pocket. I mean, C.J. Stroud looks like he's just out there playing with his friends on a sunny day in the beach in California on a Sunday. When he's out there, pressure never gets to this guy. I mean, under pressure in that last game versus the Colts to win and get in, 7 for 7 on that final drive. Big throws to Nico Collins with pressure bearing down him. I mean, this guy is a big-time player and has ice in his veins. And then you talk about DeMeco Ryans and changing the culture for the Houston Texans because everybody knows what that team has been through the last few years. They were the doormat of the NFL. They were consistently picking in the top 5. Well, they got culture changers in C.J. Stroud and Will Anderson. I know a lot of people were giving them guff for trading back to get Will Anderson. I don't think anybody's saying that now because Will Anderson has really come on the last few weeks now. He's dealing with that ankle injury, and he tried to give it his all this last week versus the Colts. We'll see how healthy he is, but I love what DeMeco Ryans has done to change the culture on this team. And Pete, I don't know if you remember, we did the draft show, and they asked us a question, which rookie quarterback was set up for most success? I said C.J. Stroud. And you know why I said that? Because they built it right in the trenches. When you trade for a guy like Shaq Mason, when you have Laramie Tunsil, when a quarterback is comfortable in the pocket, you get this type of results.
You said Bryce Young.
No, I said he would win Rookie of the Year. I said who was set up for most success. I said C.J. Stroud. I said Bryce Young will win Rookie of the Year, but I said C.J. Stroud is set up for most success.
By the way, if they had Tank Dell, that would be a big part of their offense.
Really dangerous.
They're not having him hurts them in the postseason.
But they win the division thanks in part to Jacksonville's collapse. Pete, you've already taken the L on this, but you've said that changes need to be made. I don't know, wholesale is the right word, but changes need to be made. What changes would you make?
Well, they already made changes to the defensive staff. They blew out the entire defensive staff, and rightfully so. I would probably change the way they play offense. I'd go get another offensive coordinator. I don't like Doug Peterson's system. It's too horizontal for me. They should be throwing the ball down the field more, and they don't. I would change that. The other thing I would change, I would make a change at the top. Their personnel is bad, okay? And they've had bad drafts, and Trent Baalke has lived through a couple different regimes. Coughlin was there, he stayed. The Urban Meyer was there, he stayed. They have the new regime with Doug Peterson, he stays. And yet the roster isn't great. Here's the problem with the roster. They have major cap problems next year. Josh Allen, their only legitimate true star on the defensive side of the ball, is an unrestricted free agent. They don't have a ton of cap room. The quarterback's going to be getting an extension, probably not this year now, but coming up. You have major problems, and all he does is draft linebackers. He traded up to get Devin Lloyd. He drafted Chad Muma, and he drafted a linebacker Miller in the 4th round this year.
Correct.
They need to make a change at the top, but I don't think they're going to.
Yeah, I didn't like how it almost seemed like Doug Peterson was blaming the defense for this collapse. I mean, are we absolving this offense and Trevor Lawrence for how he's played down the stretch? We just saw the graphic right there. 3rd most turnovers since coming into the league. He really struggled down the stretch. Now, again, I know he wasn't healthy, but there was a rumor that he checked on that play on 4th and 1.
Not a rumor, he did it.
My thing is, you cannot do that, right, in the NFL. If the coach calls a play, you check it. You better be right and score the touchdown.
He's done it about 3 or 4 other times and got away with it.
Yeah, again, and usually when you do that and you get away with it for so long, it's going to come back to bite you, and it did at the most important time for the Jacksonville Jaguars. So this offense has struggled. We've talked about Calvin Ridley. We thought he was going to be a guy that really took off and maybe had 1,500 yards. He struggled in this offense. When Christian Kirk went down, that's when they really struggled because that was Trevor Lawrence's safety blanket. But we can't absolve all of this offense. Yes, the defense has really struggled on that side, and I'm not sure if they should have made wholesale changes. I don't mind making a few changes here and there because we talked about Josh Allen and what he's done, and then we also talked about
Trayvon Walker.
Trayvon Walker. He took a significant step in year 2, but on that offensive side of the ball, the offensive line, the interior 3, they really struggled protecting the quarterback.
Center's terrible.
And Trevor Lawrence struggled throwing the football without turning it over.
They are Exhibit A on you better get tougher and bigger on your offensive and defensive lines, because they are not. They get pushed around on defense and they get pushed around on offense, and that's the problem. That's why Trevor Lawrence turns the ball over, and that's why probably the play calling is so horizontal, because they don't have trust in their interior of the offensive line.
How have they not tapped into the mayor of Jacksonville to ask them exactly what to do?
On their airwaves last night, I tapped in plenty, believe me.
Told him how you really feel, Pete?
Oh, yeah.
You can check out Pete Prisco's entire final power rankings on CBSSports.com. Pick Six podcast, latest episode, Will Brinson, Ryan Wilson, John Breach, they go talk about the head coaching vacancies, predict who will fill them. Of course, you can probably catch an emergency podcast on, again, Mike Vrabel being fired from the Titans today.